Welcome back to the Green Line Gazette, episode 17. Today, we're going to be talking about the game last night where the U.S. absolutely thrashed Paraguay in Game 1 of the World Cup at SoFi Stadium. We're going to get right into it again. Remember, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, YouTube, and Substack. Give me a follow over on Instagram as well at Green Line Gazette. I would really appreciate all the support that we've been getting. But again, getting right into it, I am way too excited for this. This was probably the best display of U.S. soccer I've ever seen in my life. This is probably the best game I've ever watched from our men's national team. I don't think a lot of games could even come close to this. The only one I could think of was Portugal 2002 that we talked about on episode 16, where the U.S. beat basically one of the best teams in the world 3-2. That was the Luis Figo, Rui Costa Portugal team of 2002 in that World Cup. However, I wasn't alive for that. I've only seen the highlights, so this just means so much more to me. And I mean, everyone who watched the game, if you haven't, I would really recommend go watching the extended highlights. It was absolutely class. This was, really, I think the team we could be, our full potential being on display here. We were clicking, firing on every single cylinder. It was so good to watch. And honestly, it was emotional to be quite frank. I mean, this, if you've been like myself, if you've been following this team your entire life, you can think back to the Taylor Twellman rant of October 2017 when the U.S. failed to qualify for the 2018 World Cup in Russia because we couldn't beat Trinidad on that night where it was absolutely pouring. And you have that super famous rant from Twellman on ESPN talking about we couldn't win because the field was too wet, and he's freaking out on the camera. He says the gloves should have been off years ago. Can we beat the Colombias, the Belgiums, and the Argentinas of the world, but we can't beat Trinidad on a field that's too wet and heavy? What are we doing? That was an absolutely legendary rant that really, displayed what our federation was at the time. We were an absolute joke on the world stage. We couldn't beat Trinidad to make it to a World Cup. The fact that it even came to having to beat Trinidad was embarrassing within itself. I mean, I'm sure everyone's old enough to remember the Alexi Lalas rant, the soft, underperforming, tattooed millionaires whole spiel where he says, we are the soccer generation that's been given everything, and we are on the verge of squandering all of that. So to come from there to what we did last night, I think we deserve that. Fans of the United States men's national soccer team deserve this. We have been owed this for as long as I can remember. And it is finally time that our dues were paid. It's been just years of pain. Recently, it has obviously been better, but this was the best performance in my life. I think this was owed to every fan who has been following this team. It's finally good to see that we're trending in the right direction. And Alexi Lalas did say it, right? Like, you can say what you want about him. If you don't like him, if you don't like his analysis, that's fine, whatever. I'm not the biggest fan of it either, but he was right. This was like, we deserve this. Fans of this deserve this. It's been way too long. And to have, the opening game that we had last night was just absolutely like a euphoric feeling, being in the bar with all my buddies, watching Balogun basically score a hat trick. Absolutely amazing. So I have some game notes we're going to go through because we're just going to be recapping last night's game. Episode 18 will come out in a couple of days where I'll cover the Australia pregame stuff for that Friday night game. I believe at like 8:00 it may be on Friday night. But getting right into the game, I was very, very impressed with a lot of players on the pitch. I mean, to start, we were in that 3-5-2 me and Jack talked about on the previous the World Cup 26-man roster episode, which was 2 episodes, excuse me. So we were in that 3-5-2 formation, which allowed us to be extremely fluid. Allowed us to bend with the game. And, that's exactly what we did. And it looked beautiful. We had, Balogun on either side. You had Jedi playing like very high up the wing at points. And then Richards, Ream, and Freeman really holding it down. Freeman's long balls were world class. I love seeing us play direct like that. we were rewarded for it last night, and I think that's what happens when you take chances and play direct, especially against a back line of Paraguay that plays quite high and very aggressive. Being able to put balls over the top like that is going to just absolutely rip them open, and that's exactly what we did. Starting with that first goal, that was all Weston McKennie and Christian Pulisic. McKennie all night, really, especially on this goal, though, had beautiful control of the midfield, had his head up, knew where to find Pulisic right into his stride, found that switch. Then Pulisic has that insane move, right? Splits both defenders, and eventually centers it back to McKennie where it bounces off the foot of, I want to say it was either Gomez or Caceres. I can't remember who had that own goal or who was credited with it, excuse me. But again, it was so refreshing to see an aggressive style of football, to see our players actually have confidence on the ball to the point where they can go at 1 to 2 defenders head on, take them on, get into the box, put themselves in dangerous positions. And we did that all night. And it was especially Christian Pulisic, who just looked, he was just oozing confidence. He was on the ball. He was light on his feet. He was taking every duel he could. I mean, 2 minutes after the own goal, he draws that yellow card on Caceres for, again, putting himself in a dangerous position and being confident on the ball. He was absolutely world-class last night. I mean, this should surprise absolutely nobody. We've kind of known this, right? But even when he's not writing his name down on the score sheet as a goal scorer, he still just has an immense impact on the game. I think if you were to pick anyone else not named Balogun to be man of the match, it would have been Pulisic without a doubt. Also, Anthony Robinson, showed that he is one of the best wingbacks in the Premier League and in the world still, in my opinion. The way he can drive into the midfield, creating those chances for Balogun. Balogun was just feeding off Robinson all night. I mean, you have that beautiful Balogun or the Robinson to Balogun ball where Ballo puts it right over Dest, and Dest has the tough touch early in the game and kind of blows the chance. But I mean, it was all night for Jedi Robinson. I mean, on the defensive end, outpacing everybody. On the ball, he knew exactly where he was, exactly what he was doing. He was a little shaky at the beginning of the game, but I think, during that hydration break, Poch kind of brought him over, got his nerves down, and he was just absolutely amazing for us all up and down that wing. He was everywhere. He played in the midfield at one point, and then, like I said, he was super high up the pitch. That's just the benefit of playing that 3-5-2. That's very fluid, and I think, we don't stray from that. I think the 3-5-2 looked absolutely great, to be honest. I think everybody did. Even, we talked about it in episode 16. We didn't know who's going to start, right? Freeze got the start last night. I was a little surprised, but I was also then pleasantly surprised with his performance. He looked extremely confident on the ball. He, had good spatial awareness, didn't make any, bonehead mistakes, was a good shot stopper, wasn't tested too much, right? To be fair, obviously let in that one goal in about the 71st minute, but you can't really blame him for that. It was just kind of like a wide open step down type of deal. So, yeah, you know what? Freeze actually played pretty well. Obviously, we can expect to see him probably going forward in the next 2 group stage games. I'm thinking Turner's probably just going to be a veteran presence, which I think is great for Freeze, right? You kind of got to pass the torch now while it's hot, and Freeze definitely impressed. So I will, I will give him his flowers there. I know I was a little skeptical about him coming into this game, but he can definitely say he proved me wrong. And, I'm happy to be proved wrong, to be honest, because if he can play like that, play out the back, be calm on the ball, I think we're going to be in a really good spot. Again, Balogun, right, basically had the hat trick, had that first goal that was offsides, and then came back, a couple minutes later and got a second. And then right before halftime, just that beautiful, like one of the best strucken balls, probably, maybe actually, I don't know, maybe Reyna had the best strucken ball, but still Balogun's goal to make it 3-0, slotted perfectly in the top left. He struck it so well, put a move on 2 defenders, again, being aggressive, taking his time, slowing the game down. He didn't rush himself. Like we said, past episodes, he takes high percentage shots and high percentage shots only, and that's exactly what he did. And that is basically why he scored those 3 goals. So absolutely insane. He's the first U.S. player to score more than a goal in a World Cup game, right? To score multiple goals, which is kind of weird to think about. I mean, I guess that shows the position the USMNT has been in recently. I mean, not recently, I guess in our entire history, right? Ever since 1930, we've never had a player who scored multiple goals in a single game, and now that is finally broken. Balogun is now 5th all time on the list for World Cup goals for a U.S. Men's player, right? We have Donovan with 5, Dempsey 4, Patinade with 4, and McBride with 3. And now we have Balogun with his first World Cup game ever played, already has 2. I'm very, very excited to see how he pans out for the rest of this World Cup. He looked just world class last night. I mean, it was actually insane. And, he was right. It was him, but he was also just feeding, right? That first goal he had in the 30 minutes, at the 30-minute mark, came from that beautiful Jedi through ball where Pulisic realized Caceres was way too tucked in, made that outside run, and they slotted it in perfectly. Balogun, right place, right time. Obviously, Pulisic, again, just being playmaking mastermind. Jedi Robinson having that vision on the wing. Again, I think one of the best wing backs in the world to make that pass, to set us up. Absolutely beautiful. I mean, also on the back line too, Chris Richards was healthy and did get to start for us. And thank God, because he was a huge help. Like I said, he was going to be that aerial threat, and that's exactly what he did, especially on the back line and defending corners. He was locked down, but he almost had 2 near goals, like on our own quarters, when we sent him up into the box. So if he can keep getting his head on those balls, he missed the goal by maybe an inch to the right. I mean, it probably would have hit the post, whatever. But he was, absolutely showed his aerial prowess last night. Very, very calm on the ball. Helped lock down that back 3, and then when it dropped into 5, he looked even better, honestly, with all the support around him. So, I mean, I was very impressed because he had that ankle injury, right, in that Palace game. I want to say that was match week, I think 34. I could be wrong. It was kind of like with a month left in the Prem season, and he had that pretty nasty ankle injury. So for him to come back and start in a World Cup game and play as well as he did, I have to give him my flowers. And then, I have to say how excited I am to have him back, because he is such a critical part of our defense. And he really showed his value last night, to be honest. Moving on, also Tillman, right? I was very high on Tillman. I wanted him to get that start over Reyna, and he did. I think he was class last night. You can say what you want. His finishing, right, wasn't great. There's no secret that. Like, you look at the 74th minute chance where Paraguay kind of turned it over and just gave it to us, and it was that 1v2, and Tillman had it and just blasted it at Gil's chest, right? It is what it is. Finishing wasn't great. Finishing from most subs, we'll talk about that in a minute, wasn't awesome. But besides that, I mean, Tillman was just box to box with McKennie, beautiful link ups with our forwards, with other midfielders. He helped the game breathe and flow. I think he is a shoe-in start. He has to start. I think he's way too valuable. He's so good. And I think he will get that goal, right? It will come. But just all night, like I said last episode again, the way he can win back balls after we give them up in the attacking third, it might have happened 10 plus times last night. And that's why we were able to dominate. We barely let Paraguay touch the ball, because every time we gave it up, whether it was a block shot, missed dribble, misplaced pass, whatever, we would win the ball back almost immediately before Paraguay could even cross midfield. And more often than not, Tillman was either directly involved and did it himself, or had a very big impact on creating that turnover. And I mean, that's why this game never really felt close, right? I mean, it felt a little close when it was 3-1. You get that pit in your stomach. You're like, whoa, wait a minute. But I just, with how well our midfield was retaining the ball and winning, I think we won almost every 50-50 ball too, right? You can thank Richards, Reams, and Freeman for that. Our back line was unstoppable, and in the midfield too, right? Even Dest, when he was slotting into the midfield, was winning 50-50 balls. That's why we were able to dominate Paraguay in the fashion we did, and we have to keep doing that. Like, bar none, and that starts with Tillman being in that midfield. I think it's just a must. Right. I again did say last episode that we were worried about Tyler Adams being kind of really the only true defensive midfielder. And I said he has a card problem where he will pick up useless cards all the time. And you can't do that because if you miss a game, if you get suspended on yellow cards, or if you pick up a red, we have basically no one to replace you. And then again, in the 58th minute last night, away from the play, not even close, he picks up a bonehead yellow. Just absolutely useless. Not good to see, right? That shouldn't take away, though. He did play an excellent game. But these yellow cards, man, it is so bad because he has so much defensive work to do in the midfield and in transition that if he is playing on a yellow card like he was last night, there's no more tactical fouls. If you need to slow something down, if you need to take that tactical yellow, you can't do that anymore because you're going to get sent off. And two, if you just catch someone with a stud or just the wrong way or whatever it may be, now you're getting sent off and now you're missing a game. And that just cannot happen. You have to avoid those yellows at all costs. Again, he did play a really, really good game. So I do digress there, right? But it's just those useless yellows are really, really hard to stomach because it makes me afraid that, when we're really going to need them, hopefully in those knockout rounds, that we might run into a card problem because that one he picked up last night, again, not even close to the play, just a dumb stud and into the Paraguayan outside back's ankle. And he obviously picks up that super dumb yellow. So it is what it is, but would really like us to be more diligent of that, to be honest. But, still a good game from Adams, whatever. Tim Ream captaining for us. He had great deep balls, especially to McKennie. The link up was good. There was a couple times he looked a little shaky. Thankfully, Paraguay didn't capitalize on that. But I thought he was good overall. I thought he did a good job captaining that squad, keeping people calm down, especially like we said, Paraguay was going to get chippy. We kind of called that. Not as chippy as maybe I thought they would, but they were still, definitely in the 90+, picking up some pretty cheap yellow cards. And I think Ream did a good job of not letting us get dragged into that. Again, I don't think we're in any place to be taking unnecessary yellow cards. So, good on Ream, right? He even held Reyna back. We'll talk about him right now. I thought Reyna played well, right? Obviously that goal was world-class outside of the foot bending. I think he deserved that. I still don't think he starts over Tillman just because he didn't do all that much when he came on for Tillman besides that goal, which I know sounds pretty redundant. Like he didn't do anything besides score, but it is true, right? He had that goal, but he didn't really look super, comfortable. I would say in that midfield, he looked a little rigid at times. He was way too chatty though. Like he was always getting in the Paraguayan guy's face. I think he was lucky not to get a dumb yellow card, but I credit Ream there because he was really, holding him back. To be fair though, Reyna did catch two really hard fouls. Both, I believe, were yellow cards because he just got studs to the ankle, right? So I get it. However, I think the way we can spin this positively is, yes, I think Tillman should still start, but I think you can now I think that goal was the confidence Reyna needed to, maybe get back into that flow where he, hypothetically once was, I suppose. So I think you can spin it as you can get Tillman to the start. You can get a good, 70, 80 minutes out of Tillman, and then you can put Reyna on, or even maybe in the 65th, whatever it may be. If Tillman looks shaky, I think you can now put Reyna on. I think we have depth in that position, which is refreshing to say. I think, I can't remember the last time we had a problem where we were debating, who should be starting, because we've never had players this good, in my opinion, in recent memory, I should say, like within the past 10 or so years. So I think Reyna's a great depth option. I think he's going to get a lot more game time, a lot more run. And I think that's a good thing because I think this goal is really going to kind of resurge not his career, but just like, his confidence. I think he's going to really settle in. And I think, you don't even have to take off Tillman. You could shift it around maybe, God forbid if Adams gets in more card trouble or what you have, then maybe you played Tillman and Reyna and you kind of, switch things up. But I think all the subs played pretty well, right? Berhalter came on for Pulisic, played well, was serviceable. Weah looked pretty good. He came on for Dest, almost had that goal. He was a shoe-in starter basically for the U.S. in 2022 and kind of running up to this, and he really hasn't found his form. So I think giving him those minutes at the end of the game, again, just like Reyna, are going to help him get back to where he was. So I thought he played pretty well. I was very impressed with Pepe. He did have that brutal chance that he missed, which, you always want more goal differential. You take everything you want. Not the biggest deal because we were already up 3-1 when it happened. But I thought he played super well. I thought his give and go plays, minimal touches on the ball really helped the game flow, gave our offense that life. And then obviously Reyna came on for Tillman. But the whole point was I was not worried when our subs came on the field like I have been in the past. When they came on, they held their own. I mean, obviously they let up a goal. It is what it is. It's going to happen. You're going to get scored on. Paraguay is a good side. So, yes, whatever. You get scored on. But I thought they held their own. I was not super worried, which is, again, very refreshing. I think we have real depth now. And then just Reyna's goal in the 90+7 just absolutely capped off that beautiful performance. So those were my game notes. Very impressed. The best start we definitely could have had. We stressed how important it was to, start off on that right foot. And this isn't even the right foot. This is, just an absolutely insane smashing, right? Everyone said the U.S. was going to get grouped. We talked about this. Everyone said Paraguay was going to thrash us. And then, of course, we beat Paraguay. And everyone's, going to say, oh, but it's only Paraguay, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to run you through Paraguay's FIFA World Cup qualifying, right, out of CONMEBOL, which is probably the second best region in qualifying outside of Europe. So, right, they draw Uruguay 0-0, right? Uruguay's a very strong squad. They then go on 4 days later to beat Brazil 1-0. They tie Ecuador and then beat Venezuela. They beat Argentina in World Cup qualifying on November 14th. The reigning world champions they have beat, right? So Argentina, Uruguay, notable, obviously Brazil. They then go on to tie Bolivia. They beat Chile. They tie Colombia, who is a very class side. They then go on still in World Cup qualifying right into the next year. They then beat Uruguay again, lose to Brazil 1-0, tie Ecuador, and beat Peru. Just listen, rewind that. Listen to how insane that run of games was for a team like Paraguay to beat teams like Brazil and Argentina and draw to teams like, Ecuador, who was really good last World Cup, and Colombia, who's always been a very solid side. So don't let anybody fool you. This Paraguay team is good. The U.S. just played just out of their mind, and people are going to do everything in their power to discredit the United States, right? That's just how it goes. Like if you're a fan of U.S. soccer, if you're in the soccer world, you know how hostile everybody is to American soccer fans, right? The fact I'm even calling it soccer would probably get me ripped apart in some of these comment sections or what you have, but don't let anybody tell you different. That was a very good Paraguay team. A lot of people said, one, Paraguay was going to beat us. Two, that the U.S. was going to get grouped. And now we go on and do that. It's such a refreshing feeling to finally, shut people up in the right way. And, just, again, people are going to try and discredit it, but don't listen. That was absolutely class. Before I go here, I did a little digging right around the internet, found some fun facts that now exist after last night's game. So we already obviously went over that. Balogun is the 5th all-time goal scorer for the U.S. in the World Cup, despite playing one game with 2 goals, right? Our most goals ever is Landon Donovan with 5 goals in 12 games, and then Clint Dempsey has 4 and 10. So just kind of funny in a sad way that Balogun is already on this list. The U.S. has scored those 4 goals last night are the most we've ever scored in a World Cup game. I think we scored 3 against Portugal in 02, and then maybe in 1930, I think we scored 3 at one point. So 4 is the most we've ever scored. If you think back to 2022, we scored as many goals in the first half as we did in our entire 4-match campaign in Qatar in 2022, right? We scored 1 against Wales, 1 against Iran, none against England, and then that consolation Haji Wright goal against the Netherlands in the round of 16. So we have already surpassed now our our total goals from our previous campaign, which, means we're headed in the right direction. I really hope we can keep this up. Important not to get ahead of ourselves, of course. Australia and Turkey are still going to be really, really strong sides. I have no doubt about that. And they're just going to be more, amped up now that we did what we did to Paraguay. I'm sure they don't want to end up the same way. But the last thing I will leave you with, Christian Pulisic has 3 assists in World Cups. Cristiano Ronaldo only has 2. And he has played in, I believe, 2 more World Cups, because I think Ronaldo was 06, 10, 14, 18, 22. I think this is Ronaldo's 6th World Cup. And Pulisic has only played, this is his 2nd, and he already has more assists than Cristiano Ronaldo. Just a little fun fact, not that that means anything, of course, but kind of funny to think about that Ronaldo only has 2. Well, again, Pulisic has surpassed him with 3. I'm sure that'll upset people who are going to take the joke the wrong way. But keep that in mind that, right, we finally have an American who is, kind of a world-class player, and has been consistently. That's all I have for now for this short episode. We'll be back with episode 18 next week to preview the Australia game when that happens Friday night. That should be awesome. Remember, you can listen to this on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and Substack. Give me a follow on Instagram as well, at Greenline Gazette. Really appreciate you guys giving me your time, and we will see you for episode 18, probably on, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that area.